Hello there and welcome. I'm Ole Brygger, and if you're new here, I really hope I will earn your subscription today. I still have a ton of scrap foam from previous projects. Some of them are actually pretty good and regular sizes, but I will still reuse all that I can. And for this build today, I will build some temple tiles with some elevation. So why don't we get started? First, I will cut up some 3x3 blocks out of this pink foam, and I will make 16 of those. Then I will cut out some 1-inch strips out of this army painter foam and cut them into a 3-inch width. I also cut out 8 of these 3x3 tiles of the same army painter foam. This is to make some stairs. We will need 4 of those for this build, and I will use 3 of these 1x3 blocks. With all the cutouts in place, I already get an idea of how it's going to look. I also need some columns for this build, and we will have a look at them later. I cut out 1 more block of this pink foam, and I will shave down a layer of 10mm. I did this to make interchangeable centerpiece tops, so I can have different kinds of scenario for the temple. And now it's time to make a grid on all the tiles. I will use my Proxxon on the lowest setting to make up some marks. I'll also need to mark up all the sides of the tiles, since a lot of them will be visible. So I will make a break system for this setup. I will highlight all tiles with a pencil, and the sides I will just draw in some breaks. With the pencil I'll also make a ton of cracks in almost all the tiles. And I will even break some of the edges off. All the tiles, including the stairs, will be marked up on all sides with a pencil. And then I will create some texture with the rock I found in the garden. Usually I use some curled up tinfoil, which works pretty good, but this rock, it just makes it 10 times faster. Some hot glue to put the stairs together, and a pencil to highlight all the cracks on the sides of the stairs. For one of the centerpiece tiles, I decided to use this eye I found on the internet as an engraving on my laser cutter. I also had this piece of scrap cut off from a previous project. I used my circular cutting board from Shifting Lands to cut out the inner circle so we can make a blooded well. I'll also make a brick texture in this well using my Proxxon to mark up the rough parts and a pencil to highlight all the details. I also cut out a thin slice of the center part I cut out earlier to make a bottom for the well. I'm using some PVA glue to put everything together and glue it on a tile. To make sure it stays in place, I will use some needles to hold everything together. I have these pillar templates from Shifting Lands. I will use these to cut out, some pillars. These are 4 inches tall and 1 by 1 inch wide. These templates just makes it so easy to make some beautiful pillars. I will also draw in some random symbols just to make them more interesting to look at. The pillars are very light, so I will drill some holes in the bottom of all the thick tiles to install some magnets. I marked up the middle of all the back sides of the big tiles and brought it to my workshop to make some holes with my drill press. To give the pillars some more weight, I will put in a screw at the bottom, and it will also make it easier to attach the magnets. I will use my hot glue gun to glue in the magnets. And as usual, when I'm working with foam, I will put a Mod Podge mixed with black paint just to put everything together. I will use the German Panzer Grey as a primer on all the tiles. Then I will give it some heavy dry brushing with some dungeon base, and after that I will use the cavern base just to give it some effect. I 3D printed some statues from Loot Studios, and I will give them a black matte base. I also had some leftover body parts and some sarcophagus that I will use as an altar, and the matte grey as a centerfill highlight. I will also use this ash grey as a highlight, which I will dry brush on all the statues and altars. And some palette bone speed paint for the skeleton. And I will use various speed paints to paint the body. As a blood effect on the altar, I will use Slaughter Red. And we also need some blood on the body, a lot of blood. To make some blood splatter, I dipped this big brush in the paint and slammed it with a big bottle of paint. And I'll use the same process with this brownish decay on the other altar so it will look like some dried up blood. Some brain matter beige as a highlight for the skeleton. I will just dry brush it on. Well, someone was sacrificed. Some talus bronze for the spikes on the statues and some technical color on top of it. I'll use this light gray craft paint to make the final highlight on all the tiles. For the blood well, I will paint it with some red paint and use the still water effect mixed with some blood red speed paint. And then I will just pour it in the well. For the laser engraved eye, I will use the same effect. It is done! This build was actually pretty easy to make, at least all the basic tiles. It just took some time, but it was pretty easy. And while I built this, all the ideas just came to me of how I could make a ton of different setups. The setup I have here is what I had in mind when I started, that I wanted to build something that looked like this. But the possibilities is just endless of all the configurations I can make. And with the interchangeable centerpieces, this is going to be used in a lot of scenarios. But let's have a close-up look at this. As you can see, the possibilities here are almost endless, and I'm definitely going to use this in a ton of different setups. But it's time to wrap up this video, and I really appreciate you being here and watch this to the end. I will be back maybe in a week or two with some new projects. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.